What's up, guys, and welcome to another episode of Gamescript. Tonight, we're looking at the Buffalo Bills at the Cincinnati Bengals. We're looking at a total of 50.5 points with Buffalo as 1.5 point dogs. And this is going to be an interesting game. This is a rematch of the game that never happened last year. We are looking at two of the top teams for potentially winning the conference. And it should be a high-scoring game. And we have a lot of interesting matchups going down. I'm going to get right into it and give you guys some breakdowns and some good matchups and some DraftKings Showdown lineups right after that. Hey, what's up, guys? Simon Edwards at Pumacom here with Heat Seeker Sports, and you're watching Gamescript. We're going over the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Buffalo Bills. They're playing in Cincinnati with a 50.5 point total. We're looking at Buffalo as 1.5 point dogs. You don't see Buffalo as the dogs very often, but when they're playing a team like Cincinnati, that would explain it. You are watching on Heat Seeker Sports. If you could please hit subscribe on the YouTube channel. That would be very helpful. Hit a like on the video as well. That would be helpful as well. We do all sorts of these Gamescript shows where we go over the DraftKings Showdown showdown slates and hit these island games and give you guys some lineups and ideas and just general nuggets for some stats and stuff that might help you out with building your lineups on DraftKings. So let's get right into it. Don't have much time till the game starts. Josh Allen obviously is going to be a guy that we're going to consider every time he's on the slate. And in this instance is no different. The only thing that's weird with the Bengals tonight is that they are not giving up a bunch of touchdowns to actual wideouts. It's going mostly to slot receivers and tight ends. But as far as Josh Allen's matchup, Cincinnati's been pretty strong against the quarterback. They're only allowing 15.5 points. Cincinnati's had a pretty good defense for a few years now. So you might want to bump Allen down a few points from his projection, but I wouldn't fade him by any means. Josh Allen's been up and down this season so far, but as you can see, 33 points, 31 points, 26 points, 39 points. He scores over 30 points regularly, but I think tonight, we might see him down in that 22-point range, which is still very good. Not a fade by any means, but maybe you want to reconsider him as a captain tonight. Stefon Diggs. Stefon Diggs is going to suffer the most from this matchup with the Bengals not giving up a whole lot of touchdowns to actual wideouts. But Diggs does run a decent amount of his routes from the slot or from the middle alignment. He's got 35% of his routes are run from the middle alignment. So Stefon Diggs is in a good, not a great matchup, but he's in a decent matchup for Stefon Diggs. And I would not fade him by any means, but he's another guy that I might bump down, just a couple points to make sure you're not getting overexposed to him in case something goes wrong tonight. Jamar Chase is in a good matchup with the way that the Bills have been playing recently. Their secondary has been decimated. They lost Tre'Davious White a couple weeks ago. They lost Matt Milano recently, and they're probably the healthiest they've been in the last few weeks. But that's still relative to the season. They're still really rough shape, and they are giving up 16 points a game to wideouts. 24 points a game to the slot. So they are still vulnerable in the secondary, and the Bengals should be able to be effective with their passing game tonight in this matchup, especially playing at home. So I like Chase for sure. Joe Burrow, I like Burrow. We saw him come alive last week after his bye week. Looked like he's finally back to normal. He was taking a lot more snaps from under center, and basically looked like he was like the past few years that we've seen out of Joe Burrow. So definitely like Joe Burrow in this matchup. Scored 26.5 points last week and looked like he was fully healthy again. And all those hindrances of earlier in the season are gone. And the Bengals, obviously, they need to make up for some of the losses they got earlier in the season. They lost their first 2 games. 3 out of their first 4 games they lost. So they need to make up some wins, and they want to get a big win against Buffalo. There's some, I would say bad blood, but like last year with the playoffs situation, they had to get punished because they game between the Bengals and the Bills ended up not forfeiting, but like having to get canceled, and it was never made up. So Cincinnati suffered with their seeding because of that, and it killed their home field advantage, all that kind of stuff, and they weren't happy about it. And now they get a chance to face the Bills and make it right, or like in their minds, get the win that they should have got last year. So Joe Burrow is definitely interesting tonight. We got Joe Mixon. Joe Mixon probably has one of the best matchups on the slate. Buffalo's been giving up 26 points a game to the running back position, and Joe Mixon, he's came alive a little bit last week. He had 87 rushing yards, a touchdown, scored 20 DraftKings points. He's been kind of MIA throughout the rest of the season, but with the passing game being non-existent, that kind of didn't help Joe Mixon very much. But Joe Mixon is getting the majority of the touches in his backfield, and I think he's getting he's leading the league out of the percentage of backfield touches on his team. So Joe Mixon is a good matchup tonight. He's got a little bit of a chest injury, so just double check that before the game starts. Double check to make sure that there's no hindrances on him or anything like that. But I like Joe Mixon in this matchup tonight. Gabe Davis benefited from Dalton Kincaid being out. He got a lot more short routes and higher percentage routes last week, and he's in a good situation. But Cincinnati, same with Diggs, like they're not giving up a whole bunch of fantasy points to wideouts, so that makes him a little bit vulnerable. But the Bills, I'm not overly concerned with the Bills when it comes to matchup. But if you need a tiebreaker, you look at matchup and maybe you choose somebody else over Gabe Davis. But Gabe Davis, 12 targets last week. I believe that matched a career high for him. So just kind of shows what a difference it made with Dawson Knox being out, and they had to run a lot more 3 wide receiver sets because they lost one of their tight end, and they weren't doing the 2 tight end sets anymore. 2 tight end sets have been bad for the Bills this year. It'll be good for Dalton Kincaid though, only being the only tight end in the game. Last week, he benefited. He got 7 targets, 5 receptions for 65 yards and a touchdown, scored 17.5 fantasy points. He was on the rise already. He got 15.5 fantasy points. That was the week that that Dawson Knox actually got hurt versus New England. Other than that, he hadn't done anything. So it just kind of shows the benefit of Dawson Knox going out for Dalton Kincaid. And it also benefits him in this matchup because the Bengals are pretty bad against tight end. They probably one of the worst teams against tight end. Tight end scoring 15.5 DraftKings points against the Bengals this year. So Dalton Kincaid is in a good spot. I kind of like him as a captain option tonight too. T. Higgins is in a good spot too. Same advantages as Jamar Chase, but Higgins hasn't done anything in a while, not since week 2. But don't forget that Higgins had that rib injury that he sustained in week 4. So he was out week 5. Then week 6, he came back. He was a little bit, like still sore from it. And then they had their bye week, and he came back against San Francisco. And scoring 12 points against San Francisco is a pretty good accomplishment in and of itself. But tonight he's got an easier matchup against that depleted secondary. I would look for T. Higgins to come back to life in this matchup tonight. James Cook has a good matchup, but he's not really used anymore. They just signed Leonard Fournette. He doesn't get the high value touches, so he really needs to be breaking off runs. As far as the matchup, Cincinnati is allowing 23 points a game to the running back position, which is good for Cook. So if you want to plug him in and take a chance on him, he is a good guy to plug in. His salary is $6,200. If I had to choose between him and Kincaid and Higgins, I'd take Kincaid and Higgins over him for sure. So James Cook is a good guy to sprinkle in, though. Tyler Boyd, the Bills, same situation with Tyler Boyd. The Bills are giving up 24 fantasy points a game, DraftKings points a game to the slot receiver, and that is where Tyler Boyd is running 89% of his routes. So Tyler Boyd has a good matchup on paper, but has not really done too much. He's come alive a little bit the last 2 weeks. He only got 3 targets though last week. He got 7 targets for most of those other weeks, and that was when Joe Burrow was throwing those short passes. Now that Joe Burrow has a little bit more time to throw the ball, I would look for Tyler Boyd to be less involved, but maybe tonight in a matchup where they're giving up a ton of points to the slot receiver, maybe we do see something out of Tyler Boyd tonight, so keep him in your player pool. Tyler Bass, the Bengals aren't allowing a bunch of touchdowns to wide receivers. They're mostly giving touchdowns to slot receivers and tight ends and running backs. So I wouldn't be surprised if they're able to stall out the Bills in the red zone, which puts Tyler Bass in play. But he's expensive at $5,200, and he hasn't had like any really gigantic weeks this year. He had a 14-point game, a 15-point game, and a 13-point game, which are all good. But the last 4 weeks, he hasn't done too much. But maybe that'll put people to sleep on him and make Tyler Bass a good play. McPherson, he's doing all right. He's had a couple big games, but he suffered along with the whole offense, not being able to move the ball when Joe Burrow was hurt. So he's in the same situation where, maybe he comes to life tonight. The Bills defense and the Bengals defense, I'm not too interested in the defenses tonight, just because both these teams are very good. I just don't, with Josh Allen is throwing shorter passes. Joe Burrow is, back to almost full health or full health. I'm not leaning towards defenses in this. I'd rather take the kickers. And I like Khalil Shakir in that same price range. Khalil Shakir came alive last week. Looks like he is the slot guy now for Buffalo, which is what he should have been to begin with. But now with 3 wide receiver sets, he's on the field a lot more, and he will benefit in this matchup too, with slot receivers being the guys who are receiving the touchdowns against the Bengals. So Khalil Shakir, he might be a touchdown or bust guy tonight, but at 3,400, you can do a lot worse than that. Latavius Murray has kind of dropped off a cliff recently. He hasn't done anything, but he's interesting if they get in the red zone. Only problem is Fournette is now on the team. Fournette is down at 200, so keep that in mind. And supposedly he's in really good shape. So maybe they use Fournette tonight. Fournette might be sneaky at 200. I probably won't have a ton of exposure because I don't think I need to go there with the types of builds I'm going, but just keep that in mind. Irv Smith Jr. is the tight end on Cincinnati. He saw him for the first time, in a while last week, doing some damage. He got 4 targets, 4 receptions. Didn't do too much with it. Only got 5 points out of it. And the Buffalo D is allowing 12 points, DraftKings points a game to the position. So not great, but it puts Irv Smith, if you're doing mass multi-entry, it makes Irv Smith worth keeping in your player pool. This Andre Iosivas guy has been getting targets lately. Only 1 target. What has he done? He scored touchdowns 2 games in a row. But other than touchdowns, he hasn't done anything. And he's $1,000. I probably would tend to stay away from him. I like, obviously, Tyler Boyd a lot more. Trenton Irwin, he's our guy from last year. He's been up and down this year. He's had 1 big game, 14 points against Arizona. That's when T. Higgins was out. So unless the guy's out, it's not really worth starting Trenton Irwin. So let's dig into it. Oh, Deontay Hardy's the other guy. I think he took a back seat finally to Khalil Shakir last week, and he got no targets, and he's only gotten a sprinkling of targets beyond that. So it looks like they're coming to the realization that Shakir is a good player. So let's build the optimal lineup first. See what the optimizer is spitting out. Get a quick look at that, and we can determine which way that we want to go for our fun lineup. Let's see. Let me get to that. Let me get to that game. Buffalo, Cincinnati. All right, I'm going to build an optimal here. Let's see. Well, that's an optimal with my my own projection. So let me get to the regular projection. They have, for the optimal, the first lineup that I see pop up is a 4-2 build in Cincinnati's favor. As far as 4-2 Cincinnati builds, they are 47% from what I'm seeing. 4-2 Buffalo is about 7%. So that's interesting. That's a little bit different than what I would envision. But that's what the optimizers are showing me right now. We've seen 3-3 builds at about 38%, and Cincinnati. Let's see, the 5-1 stack with Cincinnati is about 8%. So that's interesting. We'll see what the makeup is here. I think that the Buffalo side is a little bit undervalued if that's going to be the case. ETR, I see 4-2 builds in Cincinnati's favor as being 31%. So looks like the favorite is going to be massively owned tonight for good reason. So we'll build a chalky lineup with that type of mentality. Jamar Chase is going to be the guy that we want with this matchup in the captain. If we're building a chalky build, maybe we go with, let's go with Joe Mixon because he's got that good matchup. We're going to want to have maybe Joe Burrow in there with Chase as the captain. Let's see. I would go with, obviously, we want to have Josh Allen. Josh Allen, just because of the matchup over Stefon Diggs. With Stefon Diggs having a lesser probability of scoring touchdowns against his team. If I was going down from there, if I wanted to try to get Shakir in there, that leaves me with 800. That leaves you in the Lenny Fournette range if you wanted to go that direction. Also leaves you with Trenton Irwin. Trenton Irwin is the guy that the optimizers are trying to throw in if you do a build like this. So it'd be like a 3-3 build there. Deontay Hardy's another option. Fournette's another option. Let's go with a different route here. Let's go with Burrow, Allen. Let's say we put Diggs in instead of Allen. Although I think it makes a lot more sense to have Allen in there if you're doing this, for a cash build. Then we go with maybe Shakir. That leaves us with 1,200. That it just puts us in the same spot. So yeah, that's why I can see they're putting in this guy Irwin. So that's a direction for you. You could go. I wouldn't go Sherfield or anything like that. I think Irwin's probably the best bet out of those remaining guys in that price range. If you wanted to go, maybe let's put Mixon in the captain and see what that does. If we put Mixon in the captain with that good matchup, maybe we put Chase. Let's just swap those guys around. That leaves us with 2,200. I mean, at least there you can get Irv Smith Jr. in there, which is good. But yeah, it's a little bit tight with salary tonight. Obviously, we got too many studs to put in. We haven't got a good amount. We got 4 studs in this lineup with Shakir, who's got upside, and it leaves us in like a decent spot. So that's not a bad way to go. Now, if I was building a fun lineup tonight, I'll do a fun one real quick. I like Higgins. I like Allen. I like Higgins in the captain. I think he's gonna have a big game tonight. At least I'm gonna gamble on it. And that's what these when we go in these ulterior directions for these lineups, we're gambling. We're just we're betting that Higgins is going to break out because he's been like very slow lately and hasn't done anything in weeks. But he's also been dealing with a cracked rib, so he looks like he's healthy again. And Chase has gotten all the work. Don't be surprised to see the defense focusing all their attention on Chase, which will leave Higgins, a highly capable wide receiver, open a lot of this game. Let's go with Allen there. Let's go with Burrow. Let's pair Burrow with Higgins. I want to get Mixon in there. That leaves us with 5,200. I want to get Dalton Kincaid in there because I really like Dalton Kincaid's matchup. That leaves me with 3,700. I mean, you got options there. You got Shakir, you got Latavius Murray, you got Irv Smith, you got Irwin. You got a bunch of options there. If you wanted to switch it around, maybe take let's put Kincaid in the captain, see what we can do there. If you put Kincaid in the captain, we got Allen, Burrow, Mixon. Let's say we want to put Higgins in this lineup too. That leaves us with that same range basically. So Kincaid basically gets you the same thing as Higgins. You can play around with it a little bit. Maybe put in Diggs instead of Allen or something like that, and that give you Bengals defense would open up and stuff like that. So that's the direction for you guys. Make sure to hit that like button on the video. Hit subscribe if you have not already. Sorry for the quick video. I got to get to making my own lineups. So good luck, everybody. I'll try and get a short video out a little bit later. But good luck with your lineups, everybody.